Hi everybody, and I'm just thinking more of this mission, of all the missions, and Jesus said, "Go out in all the world and tell people, make disciples of all nations." And the last talk I had about how can they go if they're not sent, and so just cultivating this heart of missions into people. I just want to share a few things that I think is stopping us from going into missions. Three things specifically that are stopping us from doing what Jesus wants us to do. I want to share with you James 1:27. It says, "Religion that God our Father accepts religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." So there's two things that God accepts as faultless religion. The very first thing is to help the poor, and the second thing it says here is to keep yourself from being polluted by the world. The thing that's going to stop us from doing missions, the thing that's going to stop us from serving the poor, is being polluted by the world. So I want to share with three things that will stop us. The very first thing that will stop us from fulfilling the Great Commission is riches. Your riches will stop you from fulfilling the Great Commission. We are rich, no matter how you want to look at it. If you look at the figures around the world, you and I are some of the richest people in the world, not only in the world, but in the history of mankind. If you look at the figures, the poorest of the poor in North America have the same income level of the highest of the high in India. Okay, so the poorest of the poor here are as rich as the highest 5%, okay, in India. So just to give you an idea, I mean, let's not deceive ourselves saying, "Oh, I'm poor." We are not poor. I'm sure we have troubles and all that, but when you're looking at the world in general, we're all doing pretty good financially. The average income for a year in this world as a whole is $1,200 a year. So just judge your income in proportion to that. $1,200 a year is the average income. So we're doing way better than that. So no, I don't want to put any guilt trips on anybody. Being rich is not a sin. It's actually a blessing. Throughout the Bible, when people did what God wanted them to do, He blessed them in many ways, and physical blessing is one of the ways, and we can see that here in America. But it is also a biblical fact that being rich hinders you from developing spiritually. Matthew 19:23 and 24 says this: "Truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven." And you know about the needle and all that. So this is truth. He says, "Truly, this is the truth, that those who are rich will have a hard time entering the kingdom of heaven." So we just need to be very aware. It is a fact that being rich hinders you from accomplishing a lot spiritually. It's just a fact. You live in one of the hardest countries in the world to be a Christian in, if you live in the Western world. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it that way, but it's very true, biblically true. Because worldliness and possessions and money will hinder you the most spiritually. If you take a look at Israel, they would sin, they would become slaves. Then God would take them into Canaan, the land of Canaan, and bless them. And they would go on with God for a while. And after they were blessed, they would turn away from Him again, and the whole thing would start over again. Then they would get conquered over by their enemies, and then they would repent, turn to God again. God would bless them, and they would leave God again. Riches are a dangerous thing. They're not a bad thing. They're not sinful. But we need to be very aware that riches will stop us from accomplishing and living a life that Jesus wants us to have. Just like the rich young man who came to Jesus and said, "What should I do to go into the kingdom of heaven?" And Jesus said, "Oh, you know the laws, you just obey them." And he said, "Oh, I've done that. I have obeyed them." And then he said, "Well, sell everything and follow me. Do what I have been doing." And he went away really sad because he couldn't. When you get really comfortable, when you have all the possessions, you get to a point where it's hard for you to go and help others. The second thing that's going to stop us from accomplishing the Great Commission is distractions. The world has become so good at distracting us from what is true. TV amazes me. The reason TV amazes me is people spend so much time in front of this box or in front of their mobile phone watching something that's not true. Basically, it's a fake universe that we get so involved in. It's amazing how involved we get into these lives of these people. Just as an example, the series 24, I watched that with my wife, and we have these nights where we watch something together, and we try not to watch TV and stuff the rest of the week. But 24, you get so into it, you get so involved in the life of Jack Bauer. And we watch this, and at night you'd be dreaming about it, and you'd be like, oh, what's going to happen, and you're like beating this guy up and doing that and all that stuff. But you get so involved in the life of someone on TV or a movie star or this and that, and none of it is true. It's just fake. So they're telling us that children are spending about 5 hours a day at least on their mobile phones, and that social network, that's a whole other thing, but it's kind of the same thing. You're involved in the life of something that's fake, and the people around you, you don't care for them anymore. The real needs around you, the real stories that are happening around you, the real hurts, the real pains, you forget about it, and you're so involved and engrossed in the life of someone that doesn't really exist. And that is stopping us from accomplishing the Great Commission. Satan is using it to distract us from what we really need to be doing, to take us away from relationships that are real, people that are really going to hell, people that really need our help, and getting our emotions all wound up into someone that doesn't exist. And this really is just a figment of someone's imagination. I don't want to go all the way and say TV is sinful and all that, because there's good uses to it, and there's always good sides to everything. But we really need to be careful with social media, TV, because it takes all our time and energy, and it puts it into something that really, in the end, will not make a difference as far as life and death in the lives of people around us. So that's the second thing that's going to stop us, is entertainment, distractions, sports, all these things take so much time and energy away from what we're really called to do. The very last thing I want to share with you that's going to stop you from fulfilling the Great Commission is worldly wisdom. Worldly wisdom. The world wants safety, security, financially, physically, and that's worldly wisdom. Fulfilling the Great Commission is going to require to get out into a place that's not secure, not safe, physically, financially, and in many ways. This is what Jesus said in Matthew 10:16. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. So let me tell you, sheep, when they're among wolves, are not in a secure place. It's not secure. And the only way they can survive is not to try to be stuck into their pen, the sheep pen, or in the barn. But the way to stay safe is to stay close to the shepherd. If you're going to look for comfort, for physical safety, if you're going to look for financial safety, it's going to stop you from fulfilling the Great Commission. And we need to be aware of that. Not that physical safety and financial security and saving for the future is wrong. Again, it's one of those things. But it will stop you. Because God is sending us into a place that's not secure. And He hasn't called us to live a safe and secure life. You know, it wasn't safe at all for Jesus to go up on the cross. There's nothing safe about it. If you look at the life of Paul, 2 Corinthians 11:24-29, you know, you look at his life and tell me that he was looking for security and safety and financial safety. It's just not there, guys. 5 times he was beaten with 40 minus 1 lashes. 3 times he was beaten with rods. 1 time he was stoned almost to death. He was shipwrecked 3 times. He said he spends nights without sleeping and praying for people. He was hungry. Sometimes he had plenty, sometimes he didn't. This wisdom of the world that says, you know, you have to be financially safe before you go out. Before you give to the poor, you should first, you know, have this nest egg, or before you go out, you shouldn't go into the regions where physically someone could harm you. All this is stopping us. It's hindrance to fulfilling the Great Commission, and we need to fight against it. We don't have to be idiots, but we need to fight against it. I just want to give you one example of this. There's one of my neighbors in Nepal. He's a pastor. He has 36 orphans in his home. Just think, 36 orphans in his home. For years and years, I don't know how he's doing right now, but for years and years, he did not have monthly donations. Like, no one had said, okay, I'm going to give you this much a month for this child. It was all like some people would give here and there. So this was just completely incomprehensible as far as worldly wisdom is concerned. If he was in the West, they would put the guy in jail. If he was in the West, they would not allow him to have these children. But he has had these children for 20, 25 years or more. He has helped so many children because he had faith, and he just got out there and did what Jesus wanted him to do. If he listened to worldly wisdom, he would never have done any of it. Okay, and you and I, in this world, in the Western world, we would not be able to do what he's doing right now. We would have to have financial security, all kinds of things before we accepted a child in our house, which there is wisdom to that. I understand there needs to be rules and regulations, but this guy has been doing it. He's helped so many kids. Don't you think these kids are happy about what they found from him, even though he didn't have it? Of course, they had some hard times, but they lived, they're happy, they survived. I want to tell you, sometimes in the name of wisdom we stop people from fulfilling the Great Commission. Sometimes we stop ourselves in the name of wisdom to fulfill the Great Commission because it's too dangerous. You know, how can we approach this guy? You know, he's a little iffy. How can I help this homeless guy? You know, he might turn back and steal from me, or you know, beat me up. And all this security, we're looking for security, stops us. So I want you to think about these 3 things. None of them, I'll say again, none of them are sinful. None of them are bad. But we really need to be aware that these 3 things are going to stop us from fulfilling the Great Commission. I hope that God will help you to be more active in the Great Commission.